Ignored, disrespected, and made to feel unimportant. That's the treatment 3 mothers say they got from some members of the Shreveport Police Department following their son's recent murders. Tonight, those grieving mothers sit down with KSLA Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey, sharing their emotional stories of frustration with police.
Those mothers hope their stories spark change in the way Shreveport PD leadership deals with the victims of deadly violence. Here's Stacey.
Well, you feel a mother is not supposed to bury her child. You always think you should go first.
As mothers, Wendy Benjamin,
Day by day, it's something always to remind you of your child.
Latasha Kavanaugh,
We're living without our children.
and Tammy Davis
Sometimes it get hard trying to talk about it. It really do.
live with the reality most parents fear to imagine.
It's some shoes that you, as a mother, I promise you shouldn't want to walk in.
All 3 recently buried young sons, victims to the growing problem of homicide in Shreveport.
It hurts. It's only been 9 months since we lost Jordan, and you can see I can't help but to cry whenever I talk about him or think about it.
While the circumstances surrounding the deaths of Jordan Davis in December 2017,
At first, they told us that Jordan had shot himself, that it was self-inflicted.
Quincy Randall in October 2016,
He was in the back of a car on Babylon Street. He had dozed off to sleep, and the young man walked up and shot him 20-some times.
and Latrice Benjamin in May 2016 differ greatly.
I hear a lot of stories myself. I mean, he was in the Grimmy Drive shooting.
2 threads connect the heartache of these mothers. No one's been arrested for killing their sons, and since day one, they felt all but ignored by the Shreveport Police Department.
They never called me to this day and told me my son was dead.
The detective in charge of your son's case
Never
called?
Never.
And police didn't call you?
Never.
He died to
I
tell you?
never received a call saying my son was killed. I found out through a friend.
We found out from a phone call. Someone woke me up and told me to go to the hospital because Jordan had been shot. And that was like, by the time I got there, my baby had already passed, and he had been gone for hours because the police never bothered to contact me. Was never contacted.
Sitting down with me
He was my only son. He was my role model. He really was.
to talk about their boys,
I'm just lost without him. My best friend.
all 3 women shared a version of the same story.
He was my baby. And it hurt.
Saying it's almost impossible to get any kind of update from the detectives working their sons' cases.
But the detectives don't even much help to solve the crime. They can't tell me that they working on it. You ain't working on it. You don't want to give us a call back. He didn't call me or my husband. They don't even call you back. You have to call them. When you call them, oh, he's out. He's on vacation. What? Who take vacation
It's the same thing.
on stuff like that?
If they do no more than call us back and say, this is where we're at with your son's case. This is what's going on. We don't have a suspect right now. Call us back, return our call.
Yeah.
Because I know I called. You don't get a phone call back. You don't.
Our children mattered. They may not have mattered to them, but I feel like when you take a job, do your job.
Do your best. Show us some concern.
Show something to the family that you're trying, and we get absolutely nothing.
But during our emotional 45-minute conversation,
I don't imagine it ever gets easy.
It don't. You know, some people look at you and say, how do you do it? By the grace of God. That's it.
these mothers said they're not upset with the police officers working the streets of Shreveport.
So from your experience, you know there are some good, caring police officers in this department.
Yeah, everyone that works for Shreveport Police,
It's not bad.
it's not bad. I know people personally. I've had relationships with a lot of police officers. However, it's just a few that are there, and I'm kind of confused as to why they are there. What are they doing?
Instead, their growing frustration lies with the people working at department headquarters.
It starts at the top.
It starts at the top.
The
Starts
top.
at the top.
Police Chief
The
Crump.
police chief,
The top.
and it comes all the way down. He's the chief of police. What exactly is he instilling in the people that fall under him?
After suffering 47 homicides in 2016 and 50 in 2017, Shreveport is on pace to witness 49 homicides in 2018 if the current rate holds. That marks a 71% increase in the city's homicide rate compared to the years 2013, 14, and 15, according to police department reports.
When you ladies hear Chief Crump saying that violent crime is down in Shreveport,
No, it ain't
Yeah,
down.
right.
you don't believe that.
It's not. I ain't got to believe. Pop the TV.
You
Got
hear about
TV
a
on. You
shooting?
hear it on TV. You hear it on the street.
I don't believe it. I don't.
I definitely don't believe it.
He just talking. Cause he in a position. He just talking because the crime ain't gone down.
Struggling every day with the pain of losing a son,
Does it help to meet other mothers and be able to share these stories?
Yes.
To know that I'm not alone.
these women say they're also starting to face a hard truth: their child's killers may never get caught.
Before you knew what this was like, to have a son killed, could you have imagined the difficulty you would go through just trying to see that police at least identify a suspect in your son's killing, let alone bring someone to justice?
I always tried to teach my boys that the police are there for you, to help you, to serve and protect. I never would have thought that I would be sitting in this chair right now, 9 months later, after my child lost his life, and still with no answers.
According to Shreveport police numbers, from January 2016 through August 2018, detectives made arrests or identified unarrestable suspects in 68 of the city's 140 murder or manslaughter cases, a clearance rate of 48%. According to the FBI, the national homicide clearance rate is 64%.
With the number of murders increasing and the number of arrests remaining low, what message does that send to people in the streets who might have a gun and are considering shooting and killing another person?
It's okay to kill, and you can get away with it.
It's okay to kill. You think that's the message that's being sent in Shreveport right now?
Getting away with it.
You can kill and get away with it.
I honestly believe that, especially in my son's case.
While some of their harshest words are reserved for what these women call a lack of leadership inside the SPD,
Well, they need to just fire all of them down there and get some more people in who gonna do the job.
they say people living in the neighborhoods witnessing the deadly wave of violence carry part of the blame as well.
If you know something, tell. We just can't blame the Shreveport Police Department, the detectives, everybody. We all need to help. One day it might be your son,
Right.
your brother, your cousin.
Tell it what you see in the neighborhood, because you live in that neighborhood.
Right.
Don't just sit up and live day to day and telling other people, oh, I saw her son got shot down, but you're not telling it.
Right. We have to work together, from the police department to the DA's office, to the people in the neighborhoods, to the people that witness. Do your part. Help.
Seeking help and seeking justice in their sons' deaths, all three women told me that along with their husbands, they've tried meeting with Shreveport Police Chief Alan Crump on multiple occasions, but got nowhere, which is basically the same luck I had when I tried getting an interview with him, wanting to ask about the city's homicide rate, the number of unsolved cases, and a growing chorus of families, especially mothers, who claim they're basically being ignored by his department. Instead, I got a 4-sentence comment by email that didn't answer any of my questions. If you'd like to see more of my interview with the three mothers, it's now live online at our website, KSLA.com. I'm Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Kim.
The devil did this. The devil did this. God didn't take my child. God didn't take my child.
Shot at night, left to die alone, lying next to trash in an empty lot. That's how 19-year-old Smith spent his final hours. 6 months later, despite surveillance video showing Jamarin with an unknown gunman moments before his death, and detectives working the case tirelessly, no one's come forward to give police the information needed to make an arrest.
Murder remains one of 74 unsolved homicides in Shreveport over the last 3 years. Tonight, Jamarin's mother, Smith, talks with KSLA Chief Investigative reporter Stacey. She calls out a neighborhood over choosing silence, over talking to police to help catch a killer.
Doug's still reeling from the shock of her son's murder. Evelina Smith seems to have only two emotions these days: sorrow and anger, and understanding. She bounces back between the two moods in just a split second, wanting to capture the raw and real nature of that grief. I took 3 cameras with me when I met Evelina for a walk around the empty lot where her son was murdered.
My son was laying there on the ground. Yeah, laying right there on the ground. Right there on the ground.
You knew it was him before you even got back there. Take me back when the police had left and you finally had a chance to walk back here.
When I got a chance to go back there, I fell to the ground. I couldn't believe it. I fell to the ground. It was 3 holes in the ground, full of blood.
Your son's.
After I found out that was my baby. The next day, I came right here early that morning, and I laid on this ground. Where my son's body was. I laid on this ground just to feel something from my baby.
Someone out carelessly, someone took his life right here.
Somebody took my son's life.
When you come back here, does this feel like his final resting place, or is this somewhere you can really be comfortable and come and feel like you're close?
No, right now I feel like he's not resting. I feel like he's not resting. He's not gonna rest until they catch these people. Who did this to him?
You feel right now that the police have made no real progress in finding who killed your son.
None whatsoever.
It's hard enough, I imagine, son, but to lose your son, but to hear he was left here overnight and then
he was found by a passerby. They found him 5-some in the morning on a cold ground. He was alone. He didn't have nobody.
Do you think the folks that live in this neighborhood and others that are seeing so much deadly violence in Shreveport understand the grief?
I don't think so.
When you start to talk about your son and the lack of progress in the case, you go from being sad, it seems, to getting angry.
Yes, I'm very angry. What mother wouldn't be?
What mother wouldn't be angry? What mother wouldn't be angry?
What mother wouldn't have to bury her son? Would even have to ask for help. God placed somebody somewhere that happened to my son.
So you need someone who saw for your son, for your son. What's the one thing when you think of your son that you look back on now and will still bring a smile to you?
He loved his little nieces, his little nephews.
He loved his family.
He was so playful.
We hear so often that they're potential witnesses or somebody that knows something, but they don't stand up and tell police. Why do you think
because they don't want to be labeled. But that's not snitching. It's not snitching. It's being concerned.
How far away do you feel that you are right now from getting someone to help? You saw this crime that took your son.
far, cause I'm just asking for help. Even with this, even with this, the cleanest site up, and I can't even get. I come out here and I clean this stuff up, and it just overwhelming.
The people watching this tonight live in these communities, these neighborhoods that are seeing violence. What do they need to know? What can they do to help change this?
They need to speak out. 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 The violence ain't gonna stop. The violence ain't gonna stop. Until someone stand up and says, enough is enough. I wouldn't wish this on no mother. No mother.
Do you think these people who are killing young men even stop? What if their mother was in this position that you are now?
They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care.
Anyone following our news coverage knows deadly violence is still a very prevalent problem here in Shreveport. 133. That's how many lives we've lost to violence since the beginning of 2016. But what we didn't know until now is that a growing number of people arrested for murder are walking out of jail and ending up back on the streets. In her case, Evelyn Gilroy feels it's like the man who killed her son got off scot-free. In a small Catholic cemetery, tucked away in the back corner, a headstone marking the grave of Joshua Lacombe sits alone. It's the final resting place for Evelyn Gilroy's only son.
It's the worst thing I've ever gone through in my life.
While Josh's marker reads, "The battle is over," Evelyn says her fight to see justice served in her son's death is just beginning.
I have a long road to go.
Because she feels prosecutors didn't do their job, and as a result, she says the man once suspected of killing her son is free.
He shouldn't be out walking the streets now. Plain and simple.
On May 3rd, 2018, Josh was shot and killed behind this home on Vine Street in Shreveport. According to police reports, witnesses heard two men arguing before the sound of gunshots. The first officer arriving on the scene found Josh lying on the ground, not breathing, shot 4 times in his chest, shoulder, and right hand.
We were just in shock.
Shortly after Evelyn got word of Josh's death at her home in South Louisiana, Shreveport police took this man, Herman Woods, into custody. Witnesses saw the 50-year-old homeless man leaving the deadly scene in a hurry. During an interview inside City Jail, Woods admitted shooting Josh, but claimed Josh charged him with a metal stick, according to police reports. But 3 months after his arrest, the case against Woods got dismissed.
The man suspected of killing your son is arrested, but you learn he's not going to be prosecuted for murder. What goes through your mind at that?
Anger.
Evelyn's anger is directed at the district attorney's office. She believes prosecutors presented a weak case to the grand jury, avoiding trial because her 38-year-old son, who struggled with drugs for years,
We've had him in rehabs,
was also living homeless in a tent behind the rundown house where he was killed. But Evelyn's claim against prosecutors,
I don't know how they sleep at night,
is one Cattle Parish District Attorney James Stewart denied.
That's totally not true.
In an exclusive interview with me.
I think it's very difficult when people are in that kind of pain. They're not necessarily objective. They have a lot of emotion and they look at the evidence one way, but our job is to present the evidence the way it is. We don't try to make it any worse. We don't try to make it any better. The evidence is what it is.
So what did the grand jury hear in Josh's case? I got a copy of the DA's case file to see. Inside, there's evidence that people heard Josh and Woods arguing. Woods' admission that he pulled the trigger on the gun that killed Josh. Plus, witnesses saying Josh threatened Woods just before shots rang out, saying, "I'll kill you, I'll kill you." Other witnesses told investigators there was a history of bad blood between the two men. And Woods' claim Josh charged him with a metal stick. After considering all the evidence, according to Stewart, the grand jury returned what's called a no true bill dismissing the case.
The grand jury does three things. The grand jury either indicts, it pre-admits, or no true bill. They don't say justifiable homicide. So a no true bill, in effect, can mean a justifiable homicide.
It does seem like it was a fairly easy indictment to obtain, so I do wonder why they didn't obtain it.
Ken Levy is a professor of criminal law at the LSU Law Center in Baton Rouge. I asked him to look at the prosecution's file against Woods.
I understand that his claim was self-defense.
Considering two additional pieces of evidence, police saying Woods misled them about where he hid the gun that killed Josh, and the fact investigators never found a metal stick at the scene, Levy isn't sure how Woods avoided murder charges and a trial.
My sense is they had enough evidence to get an indictment, and whether they, again, badly played their hand or deliberately through the case, I can't tell.
After talking to Evelyn about Josh's case, I wanted to know if other recent murder cases got dismissed. Filing a public records request with the DA's office, I found 8 more over the past 2.5 years. Professor Levy says that is a troubling number.
And with 9 no true bills, I have to think that some of them they did not handle as well as they could have.
Take a closer look at the murder cases handled by Stewart's office since January 2016 to the end of July 2018. There have been 39 total cases according to DA records, and while 8 people have gone to prison, 3 murder convictions, 5 for manslaughter, 9 cases have been dismissed by grand juries, meaning 1 in 4 people arrested for suspicion of murder in Caddo Parish since the beginning of 2016 have walked away free. Professor Levy says that sends a bad message to would-be killers.
They're aware of what's going on as well, and if they see, other people getting off the hook for murder, they're more likely to try their hand.
9 no true bills.
Correct.
Since the beginning of 2016. Is that an alarming number for people to hear?
No, because I decided in January that I was going to take every homicide to the grand jury. And the reason I did that is I want every case investigated totally.
By handing every murder case over to the grand jury,
that adds a number that somebody else would not take for the grand jury.
Stewart says he's eliminating the possibility prosecutors might prejudge a murder suspect's innocence or guilt, letting grand juries decide if a homicide is murder or a justifiable killing.
Our job is not just to get an indictment. I mean, we want to have a prosecutable case that we can have a conviction from.
What do we tell people in Shreveport when they're seeing so many homicides and so few convictions?
It's still America, and you can't indict someone unless there's a prosecutable case.
You say you have to have a prosecutable case
Correct.
to get an indictment. Is the Shreveport Police Department failing to give you prosecutable cases?
Well, I think they do what they do, and we take what they give us, and we try to see if it's a prosecutable case.
Of the 9 no true bills, Stewart says some got dismissed because witnesses told police one story and the grand jury another. In other cases, like the death of Joshua Lacombe, Stewart says the evidence collected by police didn't equal murder in the eyes of the grand jury.
Why take those cases to the grand jury if you're not confident in the evidence that's been presented?
The grand jury is the proper person to say if something's a justifiable homicide, not necessarily the DA. Just because I can, it doesn't mean I should, and it's well within their power and their right to do it.
Why did you let him walk?
But Evelyn says after meeting with the prosecutor who took Josh's case to the grand jury,
It was like, this is it. Done deal.
And anytime there's a death, I take it very seriously.
she left the DA's office more convinced than ever that her son was murdered. But due to drugs and homelessness,
He's still a human being.
she said prosecutors didn't care.
I gave him life, and someone took him away.
Certainly tough for that mother, her only child. 2 quick questions here. He's saying he's taking every single case to the grand jury.
Right.
Is he not still in the position to go, hey, there's just not enough here for me even to trouble the grand jury and kind of push it back to SPD to say do some more, or Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office? Why not do that?
He can, and sometimes he said that he does, but the cases he said he gets from the police, those are what he calls complete cases. And when it's a complete case, he's taking it to the grand jury. He had said there has been some miscommunications between the departments in the past, that they're working to fix that.
We both know police officers, detectives in this town, and we can't put mics in their faces. They're not allowed to talk openly. But they're putting a lot of work in. They track these suspects down. They build these cases. They hand them over. How do they feel about these cases just not going anywhere after they do all this legwork?
It's a great question, and you say how much work the detectives do. I wanted to ask Police Chief Alan Crump that very question. He won't talk. He won't give me an interview and talk about this subject on camera, Doug, so we don't have an answer. I also tried tracking down Herman Woods at the homeless camp where he supposedly still lives. He wasn't there either time I stopped by.
Stacey, Cameron.